Hello, everyone. Welcome to this class, which is going to be about health, nutrition, exercise, and routines. I'm breaking this information down into 4 different categories. We're going to take routines and talk about those, the importance in different areas. We're going to talk about, school time. We're going to talk about different health issues, the values of nutrition, the importance of exercise, and I'm hoping that you can learn a lot from this video. I know in doing the research, I learned quite a bit. Um, you know, um, my favorite, I think when you talk about exercise, I'm just going to add this in here right now. When you talk about exercise and succeeding with it, it's just like we talked about helping our kids succeed with something. Start out small. Mainly find something that you like to do. I've tried every kind of exercise routine under the sun. I've done calisthenics, I've tried weights, I've tried gym equipment, and I would get started, and then about a month or two later, I would be done. I hated it, I dreaded it, and then I learned about water aerobics. I love the water. Um, I've had pools most of my life. I'm a very excellent, above excellent swimmer, and I just love the water. So my water aerobics classes are like 4 nights a week. They're 45 minutes, and I love them. It's a good exercise with people who may have knee problems or back problems. There's no impact. You're pushing against the water. You go at your own pace, of course. It's not hard on your knees. It's good for your knees. It's good for arthritis. It helps you stay mobile. Um, and I just highly recommend it. But you got to like water to do it, right? Um, but anyway, we're going to get more involved in that as we go. Some other things I wanted to talk about. The nutrition and the exercise. But first, let's just jump into routines. There's different routines in our life. We have bedtime routines for ourselves. All this information is for you and also for your children. The importance of having a routine bedtime. Children need different amounts of sleep at different ages. I did research on this. Their advice for a 2-year-old or a toddler, 3 or 4 years old, is 11 to 14 hours a night. That sounds like a lot, but they typically take a nap. My oldest child was a 2-nap kid, and slept probably 10 or 11 hours every night as well. When they get to the 3 to 5 area, that comes down to a required of 10 to 13 hours. When your child is between 6 and 12, it goes to 9 to 12 hours. And then I didn't investigate further, but for teenagers, they're starting to develop more into adulthood. And our requirement is a good 7 to 8 hours a night. Starting out, theirs are maybe 9 to 10. And then as they get closer to adulthood, it gets down to that 7 to 8 hour range. The importance for toddlers, that much sleep, they're very energetic. You know that as well as I do if you have a toddler yet or if you had one. They're here and there and everywhere. It's good for them. It drives us crazy, but it's good for them. They're exercising, they're investigating their world, they're learning about everything, and they need that energy to do that. When you pack them up in the morning and they didn't go to bed until 11, you're getting them up at 7 o'clock to go, and they're exhausted, and they're going to be exhausted all day. A nap is not going to make up for all that sleep that they've missed. They're going to feel sluggish. They're going to feel tired. They're not going to enjoy their day. They're not going to want to investigate their world. The babysitter or daycare center is going to have a really hard day, and that's not fair to them either. They get cranky. They're mad at the world. when my kids, I think at toddlers, we started out at 7:30. And I didn't get them up until around 7. They took naps at the babysitter's house. And they always had a good night's sleep. And they were, all the things we talked about with no sleep. They were energetic. They had fun. The babysitter didn't have to deal with crankiness all day. I didn't have to deal with it when I got home from work. Another thing that those bedtimes do, it's good for you. You need some time to wrap your day down so that you can get a good night's sleep. If you go to bed and you're completely exhausted, you just put the child to bed 5 minutes earlier, you haven't had any time for yourself, the house is a wreck, you're a wreck, your stress levels are over the top, and you're not going to get good sleep. And that's going to affect your day. That's going to affect the relationship with your child. You're going to be grumpy. You're going to be grouchy. Your nerves are going to be shot by 10 o'clock in the morning. And your day is just going to go on like that. Work is going to be more difficult, especially if you're laying there around 3 o'clock in the afternoon or sitting around and it's just, you can't keep your eyes open. You don't have time to rest because you got to pick your child up. You got to go home. You've got meals to fix. You've got this to do and that to do. And then you do it all the same way. You have no time for yourself. We talk a lot about that in these classes, how important it is to make time for you, to have your own you time. And if you don't set a time, an appropriate time for that child to go to bed, so they can be rested and that you can get some rest before it's time to go to sleep. Everybody in that house is going to be a mess. Everybody's going to be cranky. Everybody's going to be stressed out. You're not going to have good, fun family time. When you get home and you eat your meal and the kids want to go outside and play, nobody's going to want to do it. And believe me, that's what happens when you don't have that bedtime. And I changed that bedtime with compromises with my kids as they aged. And that's something that I also want to talk about is that kids are going to resist it. My 2-year-old grandson, when he's over here, it's very important for his mom and dad that he gets a nap. Between 1 and 3 is his nap time. Life is much more bearable for everybody if they've made plans after they pick him up. If I don't see to his nap, it's ruined, and he will resist me every time. He's at Nana's. He wants to play. He wants to be spoiled. He doesn't want to stop. And he's 2. Of course he doesn't want to stop. And I'll find ways that will work with him. Typically, I can lay down with him and rub on his back, and his brother will lay there and pretend like he's asleep. If he thinks everybody else is asleep, he'll calm down and he'll go right to sleep. That's what works for him. The same thing worked for his brother. He wanted to lay down. He wanted me to rub on his back. Within a few minutes, he was out. Bedtimes here at my house when they come over are not as strict, and their mom and dad are fine with that. I do make sure that if they have plans for the next day, and he does still get to stay up longer at Nana's, but I will put my foot down around 9:30 or 10. Kason, Mommy and Daddy have plans tomorrow. We've got to go to bed, and then we work it out. At home sometimes they said he'll do the same thing. He's a toddler. He doesn't want to give up. He doesn't want to stop. He doesn't want to waste his time sleeping. He wants to get into things, But, we've talked about it. There's some things with kids that you just have to put your foot down. This is the way it's going to be. This is the rule. It's 8:30. You're going to bed. End of discussion. Compromise comes as they age. My first experience, of course, was with my oldest. He was in middle school. He felt that he had outgrown 8:30, and we talked about it, and we compromised to 9:30. And what I told him, because he's the one that loves to sleep all the time, needs all the sleep, 2 nap a day kid. And I told him, I said, we're going to change this. But I'm going to tell you one thing. When the alarm goes off and you have to get up and get ready for school, you give me any trouble whatsoever, you're not ready for the time change, we're going to go back until you are. The first time, it didn't work. He was mean, he was hateful, he was grouchy, and I barely got him on that bus. He came home and I said, we're not doing this again. And he was mad, and it was like, we're not doing it. And then a month later, he was ready to try again. And after that month, we were fine. You know, he was ready to move on. And I know what statistics say, I know what the research says, but that's also going to be different for each child. With him, he required a lot of sleep. So not letting him stay up until 9:30 was much longer than what his younger brother was. His younger brother, he didn't need sleep. As a toddler, he gave up naps. He didn't need them. He wasn't cranky. He wasn't fussy. The babysitter was fine. I said, okay, I'm fine. It meant I didn't get any rest time, but that's what worked for him. He didn't need as many hours sleep as his brother did. He always made sure, though, you know, he was still 8:30, still got up at 7. He did great with it. And I compromised a little bit with him at a younger age than my other one. So some of this you have to work out depending on your own child. And as I said, we're going to finish that part up. And just saying that, you know, that routine is very important. It's important for you. You need me time so you can relax and get a good night's sleep. Enforce that rule. You're going to have occasions they're going to stay all night with their grandparents or whatever. And if you give the approval, that's okay. You know, let them stay up and hang out with grandma or grandpa until 11. They're going to crash. They get to sleep in, you know, and everybody's happy. That's an occasional thing. You know, just use your common sense, but just know that the younger a child is, the more sleep that they need to feel good. And if they don't feel good, you're the one who's going to pay for it. Believe me. Okay, the next area I want to talk about is school time. You know, it goes as well with sleep. They get a good night's sleep. They're going to be able to focus better at school. You're going to see an improvement in their grades. You're going to notice in their grades. They come home with an assignment, and it's pretty much an assignment that's similar to what they've been doing. They've got wonderful grades on all of it, and all of a sudden, they don't have good grades. Maybe it's science. They love science. They always get nearly perfect remarks on their science things, and all of a sudden, they're not doing well at all. Look at their sleep routines. You know, are they getting enough sleep? Are they having problems with sleep? If you think that there's a problem, talk to your pediatrician. Do not give them medications. They do not need medications. Don't do that. Their body, what they can handle with medications is completely different from ours. Talk to your pediatrician about something like melatonin, but always talk to their pediatrician first. Let them make that decision. They're trained. That's what they're trained to do. They work with babies. They work with children. They know what a child can handle and what's good or what's bad for a child. But melatonin, it's very useful for a lot of kids. My best friend is raising her 2 of her grandchildren. And it was found out very early on, and I saw it. He was extremely ADHD. And his pediatrician, of course, with the right medication, also had her give him melatonin. It worked wonders. But that's a medication that you talk to your doctor about before you ever think about giving it to your child. Please do that. It's important. Don't go to Google to find answers. No. They'll tell you horrible things sometimes. But go to your pediatrician. And one of the well checks or something, if it comes up, just say, you know, he's not sleeping well. Something's going on. I've noticed it in his schoolwork. I've noticed it in this. And the pediatrician will talk to them, get to the bottom of it, maybe tell you to get melatonin. Maybe it's something other simple in some of their routines. Maybe something's going on at school. He'll help you get to the bottom of it before he goes to medication. Another thing with school is those routines are important. We're going to talk about meals and such, but, having proper meals at a proper time. It's perfectly reasonable, and most people like to have a sit-down family meal around 6. That gives the child plenty of time to get other things done, their schoolwork done. My rule at home when I was growing up was that after the meal, you're probably going to be tired. So let's just go ahead and get this homework done and be finished with it. Then we can focus on our meal, and then we can focus on your playtime. And it worked for me. I was a very hyper kid, and that's what worked with me. And all that hyperness after a big meal, I was finished. There was no doing homework. There was no playtime. I was just done. I had ran hyper all day, and that big meal put me over the top. So try to get those other things worked out before the mealtime. When you guys get home from work and the babysitters or daycare or school, sit down and say, give me your book bag and let's see what you got to do tonight. Work with them together with it. That's good. That's good time together. That lets them know that it's important to you what they're doing and what they've done for the day, what they're getting ready to do the next day. It helps you encourage them to do well in school, to focus. So get that homework out of the way. Be done with it. And because if you let them go outside and rip and run, they get a big meal in their stomach, they're not going to be able to focus on that homework. So my advice is get it out of the way right at the beginning. You get home, that's priority. Get the schoolwork done. Everybody can change their clothes and do whatever later. With most kids, depending on what grade, you can have that stuff knocked out in 30 minutes. As they get older, it may be an hour, and it goes from there. And then have your family meal. Or let them go out if they're old enough to go out on their own and it's fenced property and it's safe. Go outside, go ripping and running in a place where you can see them. My kids, they were given this amount of space to play while I was cooking dinner. And that was because I could see through the kitchen window and see everything that they were doing. We had a padlock on the gate. They could not get out. I didn't cage them up or trap them, okay? It was just a safety. They weren't in a little pen. They were in a huge yard. We lived out in the country, and it was huge. But, I didn't have to worry about them getting out through the gate and getting hit by a car. But they had the full yard to rip and run and play. And I could see what was going on. I could open the front door and check on them and see. If you have that kind of situation, that kind of ability, by all means, that's perfectly fine as long as they're safe and as long as the play space is safe. But if not, if you don't feel comfortable with that, let them go to their rooms or the living room or whatever and play. Watch their cartoons or their YouTube or whatever it is that you've approved for them to do. Get dinner done. Try to have dinner as a family. I'm going to talk about that more in detail in a minute. Family time meals are very important. It's not a popular thing anymore. It's a rarity. But, looking back at my childhood and family meals were at a such and such time, everybody was at the table. Any plans you might have, they were for later. You sat down with the family. There were no punishments there. There was no arguments there. We didn't have cell phones, but if the phone rang, Daddy got up, put the phone off the hook. We finished our meal. No phone conversations. He owned his own businesses and owned a lot of property. None of that kind of stuff was dealt with until family mealtime was finished. And that's a time when we could share our day. You know, as teenagers, I admit we probably just sit there staring at each other going, oh, when is this going to be over? But, you know, it's one of those things when you grow up and you look back and you see how important that was. My ex-husband didn't want to be involved, but me and the boys, we sat down and had dinner together. Of course, as they started aging out on me at 16 through 18 or whatever, didn't get to enjoy that as much. I wasn't as firm as my dad was. And I left home at 18, and up until that time, it was dinner is family time at the table. At that point, it was just him and my mom and me, but we did it anyway. I would not let my kids eat on the run. Mm-mm. We are having our meal. I understand that you've got soccer practice after school. With Corey, I know that you've got karate class tonight. Wednesday, I know it's your all's, youth group tonight. Me and his dad may have gone ahead and eaten, depending on their age. Most of the time, I was right with them anyway. But we would at least try to get some kind of a meal in before we took off running. And those are, in those situations and circumstances, there was compromise going on. There was, okay, we didn't get home. No, everybody didn't get home today until 5. You've got soccer practice at 5:30. Let's grab an apple or a banana, eat on the way, come home, and we'll sit down and have our meal. And it was typically a meal that was left over from the night before, so we could go ahead and eat it when it was early enough in the day, and everything, their schoolwork and all that kind of stuff followed. It worked out, but set up some kind of routine for school time. During the summer, of course, that's a little bit different. My advice to you, I didn't do this, but I know my daughter-in-law does, and I know my youngest does with his kids, is that every once in a while, maybe once or twice a week, she'll set aside, Braden, we're going to make sure that you're keeping up with everything you're supposed to. Let's go ahead and get prepared for next year. And they might spend 30 minutes to an hour together going over math that he's learned, or my grandson loves to read, so they may talk about a book that he's reading. Brittany does assign him books during the summer to read. I think he's even gotten on this library program where you read so many books in a certain amount of time and you get rewards. I don't know if they still do that or not, but he does love to read, and she enforces that during the summer. And then they'll have a weekly sit down and talk to me about the book that you've been reading. She reads it herself, so she knows what she's going into. So she keeps that going even in the summer. That's pretty much what they do. Let's review some math that you learned last year. Most of the time now, that's Braden teaching her, but me, I looked at his math and it's like, I used to tutor at algebra in college, right? And I look at that stuff and it's like, no, I have no idea what you're doing. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that she even developed some kind of a learning routine during the summer months before school starts back. Maybe your child had difficulties with a certain subject. He passed, he made it through, but he was still having a hard time catching on to English or reading or history or whatever. Do some research on your own. Talk to the teachers. Before your kid gets out of school, just go to them. I see where he really struggled with such and such this year. What can I do to help him this summer? They will gladly give you materials. Some of those teachers will even keep up with you during the summer and keep supplying you with more materials. If not, go to the library. You can go online. There's all kinds of places you can search. I've got one of my grandsons in a program online. It's called Prodigy Math or something. And I pay for it. It's inexpensive. It's like $6 or $7 a month. But he goes through, I don't know what all he does on there. I get his final scores for a month and they're all fantastic. He still loves to do that. He's been doing that. I guess I got him started when he was like second or third grade and he's getting ready to go to seventh grade. Oh, geez, that sounds horrible in my mind. Um, but you can find 3 things on there. He used to love to play school when he was younger. And I would go online and we would find reading assignments and math problems. And, they've got tutorials to go with them to help you figure out what in the world what they're doing. And like I said, you can always talk to the teachers. It doesn't mean that you're going to bombard your kid every single day. We're home now and we're going to study. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like Brittany does, maybe once a week. Let's review the math that you were doing last year and make sure you're still current, because what you learned last year, you're going to need for next year. So let's make sure we don't get spider webs in there that clog our memory up. And then his reading he loves to do. So they might take an hour a week through the summer and still do a little bit of school. And that's her rule. There's no getting out of it. There's no compromise. There's nothing. School and education is very important to her. She's told me she didn't have anyone in her family that pushed her. And as an adult, she didn't go to college until she was 30. Well, she wasn't even 30 yet, but if she had somebody to push her and encourage her, and that's what she does for Braden. Braden is a great student. He does love it, but she still has to push. And it pays off. He was an AB honor roll this year with 3 points from a perfect. And that's just because she pushes, not in a mean way and not in a super strict way. She makes sure that he's got his homework done every night. She makes sure of this. She makes sure of that. And my dad did that for me as well. And as an adult, I appreciate it so much. But start thinking more about their school and the importance. Get a good night's sleep the night before. A good breakfast. That goes into some of the nutrition that we're talking about this week. We didn't know all these different things about nutrition when my kids were growing up, or when I was growing up. We knew that it was important about the food groups, that they got their vegetables, the fruits, the proteins, etc. When I was growing up, it was easier for my mom because she was a stay-at-home mom. But we had a good breakfast every morning. I didn't like breakfast. When they came out with these flavored oatmeals, I was good to go. Mom would fix me one of those and a piece of toast, and I was happy. My older brother, those big vegetable bowls, that's what he started out with for cereal. And he wanted bacon, and he wanted eggs and toast and the whole 9 yards. And then with my kids, I worked, but I was up plenty early enough. I made homemade biscuits. They had gravy. They had all these horrible, greasy, heavy food. I look now and it's like, how on earth did those kids stay awake during school? All that fat and cholesterol, it would have knocked me out. But we have healthier food choices now. Don't send your kid out the door with a Pop-Tart. Pop-Tarts are good for a morning snack on Saturday. That's the only nutritional value they have. It is not breakfast. Running out the door with a donut and a box of juice, that's not what you're striving for. You may have to get up a little bit earlier, find the fresh fruits that they like. If you can't afford fresh fruits, compromise. Maybe it's a fruit cup, a bowl of oatmeal, a piece of toast, something that will get their day going and their stomachs are full so they can concentrate on their work, but it's not all this greasy, high carb stuff that are going to wash them out. Just look, investigate. You know what your child likes and what they don't like. Maybe you had pork chops the night before. They want a pork chop for breakfast. Get one of those things out of the refrigerator. Give them a pork chop. Maybe they had a baked potato. Give them the leftovers. There's nothing wrong with that. Breakfast doesn't have to be bacon, egg, sausage, and cereal. Many times, haven't you ever had breakfast for dinner at night? It's wonderful sometimes. Our family was huge on Sunday night. It was pancakes. Um, but yeah, you know what your kid likes. You know what they don't like. Um, they don't want scrambled eggs in the morning. Fine. Find something that they do like. Your goal is they have got nutrition in their bodies when they're heading off to the babysitters, the daycare, or school. They've got their day, they're ready, they've got some energy going on in their body, and they're ready to proceed through this day. That's your goal for the morning meal. Just try to make it healthy. And there's nothing unhealthy about a pork chop. I think when I was pregnant with one of my kids, it was cold pizza every day. Really don't advise that, but it does have some nutritional qualities in there, okay? That's the way I'm going to look at it anyway. It could be maybe you made chicken nuggets the night before and there's some leftover. I wouldn't put that with French fries, maybe a fruit cup. Find out what they like, what they're going to eat. Don't waste your time on something and fighting with them to eat it if it's something they're not going to have any part of. Work around their likes. That's the way you like to be treated. If you're not a bacon and egg person in the morning like I'm not, and you deal with a handful of nuts, maybe an apple or something like that, that's what you like. Why shouldn't they have that same advantage? You get to eat whatever nutritional value that you want, as long as it's nutritious. Let them do the same thing. I don't want eggs. I don't want sausage. Can I have some of those leftover chicken nuggets? Of course. But I want you to eat this fruit cup to go with it. Work that out with your kid. Everybody's different. Everybody has different likes and dislikes. But anyway, I think, that's another reason why we have family time. Try to have healthy meals. Our night at home when I was growing up and with my boys was Saturdays were my day. I did a lot of cleaning, a lot of this and that as the boys, and we had a pool. As the boys got older, I would prepare myself for the weekend. Excuse me. I would make like chicken salad, potato salad or something. Maybe my ex-husband grilled hamburgers or whatever. That was our day off from being perfect. Which we never were, by the way. That was a joke. But maybe you have a Friday night, everybody, let's all hang out together, watch a movie in the living room, have pizza in there, and that's what we're going to do. Great. That's fine. That's not an every night thing. But maybe that's your Friday night thing. We're going to celebrate the weekend. We're going to start it off. Instead of everybody at the table, we're going to hang out in the living room. We're going to watch a movie, and we're going to eat pizza. Maybe you have a taco night on one of those nights. But, for other meals during the week, if you work and if they're going to school during the day or daycare, whatever, you get home at night, try to fix a good nutritional meal. I have low blood sugar. It's important for me that I have nutritious meals throughout the day. You can go cheap with that. At first, I thought it was crazy, crazy expensive. And I learned that there's nothing wrong with a bag of frozen Brussels sprouts. I don't have to get fresh every time and spend all that money. There's no added sugar. There's no added this and that and everything else. It's perfectly fine. In meats and stuff, have fried chicken, but you don't have to have mashed potatoes and gravy and high bunch of cholesterol and crap to go with it. You can have fried chicken. You can put in whatever the family likes. You can throw in maybe an ear of corn, green beans, other things that aren't so heavy and so fatty. You're getting the idea. Not every night is taco night. We don't eat junk food every single night. It's a lot cheaper to cook at home than it is. I'm tired, and your routine ends up going through McDonald's every single night on the way home. It is horribly unhealthy. That's a special treat time. They come home with a wonderful report card or whatever, something great's happened. Go celebrate at McDonald's. That's not every night. It's ridiculous how much money people spend on stuff like that. If your income is low and you're having a financial struggle, it takes the time and you're tired, but you can do things like making up a good pan of vegetable soup, extremely healthy. And you can eat, you can have those leftovers for another night or two. Didn't last when my boys got bigger, but I think they could just look at food and it just disappeared. But there's a casserole. There's a favorite casserole that everybody in the family loves. You eat on it one night. It's there the next night. All you got to do is pop it in the microwave, heat things up, and you're ready to go. You don't have to stop and spend $20 at McDonald's. You can go home and spend $5 on a meal. You made the casserole. It costs $10 to make it. Here's 2 or 3 meals. They end up being $5 to feed the entire family. So nutrition, good nutrition at home is very beneficial to your checking account or your debit card. You're going to save a ton of money. You may go in the store and think, wow, that fruit's expensive. These vegetables are expensive. But then turn around and figure out how much money you spent on junk. How much money have you spent on all those potato chips, all those Little Debbie cakes? How much money have you spent at McDonald's that week? Start adding some of that. Think about it. Write down, actually, I think I'm going to call that your homework assignment this week. What did I have? Well, we're going to have 2. Get a notepad this week. Write down on one side of your paper, we went to McDonald's tonight. We fed 3 people, and it was a total of $20. The next night, let's cook a meal from home that's going to last 2 days. You get all the ingredients. You put the cost down. It cost me $10 to do this. There you go. You spent $20 on one meal for one night versus $10 for a meal that's going to last 2 nights. Work with that and think about it a little bit. Put some numbers down there. Really get your brain thinking. You're going to understand where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to say. It's expensive for all that junk. And I'm looking at the timer right now, and we're starting to run out of time a little bit. And I don't want you guys to have to sit here and watch this all night long. We've talked about bedtime. Let me see what else is on my agenda. Yeah, let's go straight on to a little bit more about nutrition, is having healthier snacks around. My daughter-in-law, she started Braden out with fresh fruit, and he would take, if you give him a big bowl of fresh fruit and say, here's a package of cookies, he's going to go to the fruit. He loves it. That's what he's been programmed to love. That's how she started him out, and that's what he loves. And my boys are spending, 2 of my grandchildren, he and his 2-year-old brother are spending the weekend with me. And I will spend a lot of money on fresh fruit, but it's cheaper than chips. It's a lot cheaper than chips. You can get a big old container this time of the year of blueberries and spend $4. During the winter, it's not that cheap, but right now you can get it. Even frozen blueberries, they're cheaper and it's healthier. You go buy 3 bags of chips. Those run about $4 a piece. You could have given them watermelon. If they love peaches, my grandson, he fell in love with peaches last year. Maybe they love grapes. The fruit bowl that I will fix for the boys this weekend will have blackberries and blueberries and strawberries. Sometimes I put kiwi in it, and they will tear that bowl up. They won't. I will get them cookies. I've still got the package of cookies and stuff when they came the weekend before. They never opened them. Now, the 2-year-old, he wanted his fishes, the bags of goldfish, and he ran around with that bag on and off through the night. But he was right back in there. His love is strawberries or blueberries. And he was eating those things, and at a point it was like, you got to share with your brother here. We're going to run out. But start substituting some of that junk. If they're so used to programmed to having all these greasy chips and stuff at night, say, I didn't get chips at the grocery store this week, but there's a big bowl of strawberries I got ready for you in the fridge. Start working it out that way. Get the little small bags of chips. Why don't you sit down and eat some blueberries right now, and we'll talk about a bag of chips later. And give them one of those small bags and not one of the great big old bags. They're going to develop weight problems. All kinds of bad issues can start going on. But yeah, and we talked about the importance of eating together as a family, having healthy meals. And now I want to touch a little bit on toddlers that don't eat. I had one, drove me crazy. I was worried. I was a new mom, and the kid wouldn't eat. All he wanted to do was run. And finally, at his well check, I talked to the pediatrician. I said, the kid won't eat. And I said, what am I going to do? I said, he's a small boy. And he was. He was tiny frame. He was just a small kid. My mother-in-law was driving me crazy. And he looked at me and he said, they're just like us. When they're hungry, they eat. I was like, okay. And he advised me to have healthy snacks available. I did make him stay in his high chair at the dinner table. And if he sat there and played around with his food, that was fine. But he was still going to sit there. Every once in a while, you would occasionally see him grab a few pieces of macaroni and cheese or something. But then I had snacks for him. And Brittany and Chris are going through the same thing with my 2-year-old grandson, Kason. He don't want to stop to eat. He's too busy. At home, he has to sit at the family table in his high chair and wait it out. At first he would try, when he become 2 and he wanted to rip and run, they had to listen to him fussing and carrying on the first night or 2. Then after that, now he knows, I got to sit here. It's not going to do me any good to throw any of these fits. Nobody's paying attention to me, so we'll just deal with it. And, weekend before last when he stayed here, that's what he does. We have mealtime. I think they had chicken nuggets and something, maybe fruit or whatever to go with it. And finally, it was just, like I had it in a place where he could reach it. Every once in a while, he'd run by and grab a chicken nugget. The funny story with my oldest is the one that I went to the pediatrician. I was worried. And he was right there in that room. He was only 2 years old, 2 years old. And the pediatrician is sitting here telling me this stuff in front of him. And it bound to he'll eat when he's hungry. So, me and his dad, we went to the game farm. We cooked hamburgers and hot dogs. And Chris was running around playing. And then me and his daddy said, it's time to eat now. He said, well, maybe he was around 3 or 4 because he could say this many words. Dr. Bob says no. And I'm sitting here, gee, thank you, doctor. That's what I needed to fight with. But he was right. Chris never went hungry. He was perfectly healthy little boy. And as he got older, those routines changed. And Chris was worried about Kason. Brittany even told him, Chrissy's a toddler. He doesn't have time for something like that. And now he's understanding. He's seeing Kason run by and grab something. Grab a bite out of a pork chop or whatever. And Brittany she makes him sit through family time. But then if he's not eating, she makes sure that there's food that he can grab it and go. Healthy food that he can grab and go. Not a bag of goldfish. Fruit cups, pieces of fruit. If he loves that pork chop, by all means, don't let it sit there until it's disgustingly nasty and will poison him to death. But you get the point. Homework, we've talked about that. The only other thing I want to talk about is exercise. And this is going to be brief. We're already 45 minutes into it, and I want to make sure you understand your homework assignment and your quiz. Exercise, I talked a little about it. Find something. Well, actually, I think I have said everything as far as you're concerned. Find something that you like to do. My love is water. That's what I do. If you love to run, go run. If you love to, if you've got a video or something on your phone, an app or whatever that you like to do, some kind of basic routine, calisthenics, whatever, just look around, experiment with different things. And then when you actually love something, you're like, I can stick with this. I like doing this. And that's your thing. Like I said, over and over again, mine's water. And what I love is I have a pool where I live, so when I go over there in the summer to relax, I'll swim a couple of laps or something. But find what works for you. Same thing goes for your kids. My advice is to start them exercising at home as young as you can possibly get them to do it. I would say, do something, this is role modeling again. Do something at home that they can see you. Something that I've taught in other classes, and I may have mentioned it. I've taught it on other videos. I don't think anyway. Do something they enjoy that's fun. Get a paper towel roller. That's a horn. You've got one, they've got one. Now we're going to be a marching band. Let's lift our legs high and do our arms up, and let's be a marching band and march around the living room. And they will love it. That's fun. They'll play with it. Maybe they've got some other musical toys around the house, a drum set, a tambourine, whatever's fun for them. The focus of doing this is they see you exercising and you're teaching them early, and hopefully that's going to be their way of life. I know that the kids do it at school now. I know when Braden came home, he was like 5 or 6, and they were doing yoga at school. You should have seen me trying to balance up there. But, try to incorporate exercise, especially nowadays. You don't live in a safe neighborhood or something, and your kids have to spend a lot of time inside. Maybe they enjoy Xbox too much or other different types of games. You've got an hour to do that later. Let's do some form of exercise. Let's go for a walk. Let's do this. Let's do that. When I got my baby fat off from having my boys by walking, I got a wagon, I put them in it, and off we went. And as they got a little bit older, they would walk with me. And they're both still kids that like to exercise, or they get it whether they like it or not. I think we pretty much gone over everything I wanted to talk about. Let me make sure I covered everything, the routines, bedtime, school times, education, meals, exercise. I think I pretty much touched on everything. Now, this is the real exercise, real homework I want you to do. Think very seriously about some kind of exercise program that you can start. Visualize it in your head. Is this really something I want to like? Maybe have 2 or 3 ideas. I think I'll try running. I think I'll try walking. That water exercise program sounds pretty cool. I might check it out. But give me something, write down something after you've thought about it and your plan to get it going. Maybe if it is water program, you call the Y, see how expensive it is. There's plenty of scholarships they give out based on incomes, especially for kids. Maybe it's just walking. Maybe you decide to join a gym. Think of something and let me know what that is and your plan to get that started. That's your homework. And here's our quiz. I've got 4 questions on this video. And now all these are things that you've heard mentioned in this video. So like the first one, name a reason why bedtime routines are important. I want you to name a reason that you've heard in this video. There's all kinds of reasons out there. I want to know that you've watched the video. So name a reason in the video that we have discussed why bedtime routines are so important. One more time. Name a reason why bedtime routines are important that you learned in this video. Number 2. About how many hours of sleep does a 2-year-old need? We talked about it. I researched it, told you what research told me. It wasn't an idea I popped out of my head. It was there in the video. One more time. about how many hours of sleep does a 2-year-old need? Number 3, name an exercise you can do with your child that we talked about in the video. Once again, name an exercise you can do with your child that we discussed in the video. Finally, number 4, give me 2 examples of a healthy snack. I want at least one of them from the video. I'd like to have both of them, but you can venture out on one of them. Does that make sense? Once again, give 2 examples of healthy snacks. One is strictly from the video. I prefer both of them, but one can be strictly from the video, and one can be something that you know about that I don't. We'll then say that both of us are educated on it, right? Anyway, that's the end of this video. I've hoped you learned some things. As always, if you have questions, ideas, comments, concerns, call me at the House Sunshine Center, and we'll talk about it. I think that number, I work there, and here I am, 875-3745. Double check it. You can Google it. We're out there. But anyway, everybody have a great day and a great week. And like I said, I hope you've learned something. And I'll talk to you later.